knitters, welcome to episode 90 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I am Devin Ventry, your host. You can find me online at knittymcpurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly over on Instagram. And if you want to email me, I am Devin at knittymcpurly.com. I'm a little further back today. What do you guys think of this? Yes? No? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I hope everybody's doing super well. I think Sunday is just going to be my podcast day. I kind of can't swing it any other day, and Sunday is perfect. So mark your calendars. No one cares. But Sunday will be the day that I podcast. So it is back to school time. I have homeschoolers and schoolers, and we're all gearing up for back to school, which is really fun. It's been kind of cooler weather. This morning, on the way back from church, my husband goes, "The leaves are changing." I was like, "No, they're not. It's August 14th. Like, we've got 2 months until the leaves are gonna change." But it is cooler. I don't know, global cooling, we'll see. Anyway, when the weather cools down, my knitting kicks into high gear. Does that happen for you too? I love that. I love the cool crispness, and I just want to knit. And I just I'm galvanized to knit. Love it. If you have not already, please go look out for Future You and pre-order an advent calendar. I am wrapping these up and they are going to be headed out the door. USPS is having a rate hike on October 2nd. So I thought, can I mail out advent calendars before that? I'm like, it seems a little early. But I don't know what this rate hike is going to be like. I don't know how much I feel like if you're going to talk about it a month in advance, then maybe it's significant. But I guess we'll see. So if you have not pre-ordered an advent calendar, please go do that. And the giveaway. I had a giveaway last week. So many of you left me a comment. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm going to be giving away, I don't have it with me, a bottle of Wool Wash in the Peony scent, getting ready for my new fall scents coming. And the winner of the giveaway is Pam Hans. Congratulations, Pam. Yay. Pam is a long-time and wonderful customer of mine. So when her name cropped up on the random number generator, I was like, yes, yay for Pam. I'll get that in the mail to you right away. Hope you love it. And thank you so much to the rest of you for leaving a comment. I really appreciate that. Okay, progress and shop news. I will be having a shop update Saturday, August 27th at noon. And I will have a lot of things in the shop that are back in stock on that day. So I'll send out a newsletter. You don't need to remember it or anything. But if you have not signed up for my newsletter, go sign up for it now, because that is the best way to find out about new things coming out. It's been a lot of stuff behind the scenes that, as always, that, why bother even talking about, because I can't talk about it. But I have been working on my Everywhere sweater pattern. I know, it's been a long time. I talk about it a lot, but this week I dedicated solid days to working on this pattern and a fingering weight pattern called the Everywhere Sweater Light, which I'll go ahead and show you, the one that I am working on right now. So I thought, I love the Everywhere sweater. I wear it actually a lot, even though it is August, because of air conditioning. It's just really cold in my house a lot of times. I always joke that my husband only likes air that he pays for. And so it ends up being kind of crazy cold in our house. But I thought I would love to have a lighter weight version. So I dyed up some Fontaine and Bougie, because I thought the font, it would be cool I really wanted hot pink, and I thought it would be cool to have one in Fontaine. But then I thought maybe I'll put the mohair with it in a lighter color to kind of tone down the Fontaine. So I did that. And here's how it looks. I don't know, the jury's kind of still out on the two yarns held together. From a distance, I think it looks really nice. But when you get closer up, you know, you can kind of see that the yarns don't always lay perfectly together. So this is just an occupational hazard of using two different color yarns held together. I do really like it. I think it looks really nice. I think this is a sweater that I'm going to wear a lot, but I have been basically working on these two patterns in tandem. This one is not going to be ready for test knit nearly as soon as the bulky one. I'm planning right now on September 15th. A lot of you volunteered to test knit this sweater. I don't know exactly if I will need that many test knitters, but that test knit will start September 15th, and it will not take too long because it is like a super bulky weight sweater. It knits up really fast, and it's super easy and fun, and it basically knits itself. So probably beginning of October, early October, that test knit will wind up and that pattern will be available. So that'll be fun. So now I'm working on two new designs, because if you remember from last week, and so I used my hooks back here. Did you notice that? So I have the Fontaine and the Bougie. And these are two colors that are going to be part of my permanent colors when those come out. And I'm using, gosh, they look amazing together too, don't they? These are the two colors that I'm using for my other design that I showed you last week that I'm working on. So I'm basically like doubling up on my mohair Bougie. This color here is called Trinket, and it looks kind of amazing with Fontaine. Oh my gosh, so pretty. So I definitely am working toward having ready for you sweater quantities of my 12 base colors. That's like a long-term goal of mine. That is starting to be realized. It's just a slow process. You guys know, you know how it is. But those will be available hopefully around the time that these sweaters come out, so that you can knit your sweaters in these colors if you choose. Where is, okay, I don't know. All right, so this, I've gotten a little bit further on this one. That's the back, because I did the short rows in the back. You know, it's going to be miles and miles of stockinette as usual, but by changing the colors, it's really motivating. It's been really fun to work. Also, you're not only changing colors, but you're changing textures. It's, you know, a stripe of mohair and a stripe of fingering weight wool. So that's really fun. Both really fun knits, two things I've been working on. I have a little tray on my couch where I keep my knitting, and having those two things there. When I pick them up, they're two very different projects. So they're really a lot of fun to work on. But that's exciting. Like, I have knitting to show you guys. That's so exciting for me, because sometimes I don't have knitting. Oh, but I need a name for this sweater. I don't have a name for this. It's going to have a bat wing, like a deep bat wing, but I hate bats, so it can't have the name bat in it. I like Batman, but like bats, I'm afraid of bats like other people are afraid of snakes. If I see a bat on TV, my husband sent me a picture of, I'll put it up on the screen. He sent me this picture just to freak me out. It's a bat like the size of a person. And like, if you're afraid of spiders, like imagine a spider the size of a person, or a snake the size of a human being. Oh my gosh. I was like, I never want to go to this place, wherever this is. It's somewhere else, not here, thank goodness. But if I ever saw a bat this big, I would run screaming into the night in an irrevocable way. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I need a name for a batwing sweater that does not involve bats, if anybody has any ideas. Okay, topic of the week. So I've been thinking a lot about sleeves lately, because I'm doing this awesome batwing sleeve. And because my Everwear sweater, frankly, has a different kind of sleeve than I typically do. Normally, I do a fitted sleeve That's been kind of the fashion up until now. But after COVID, the fashion became much more loose, much more baggy, much more comfortable. That was a change that happened because of COVID and people working from home and dressing more casually. Another fashion thing that I want to talk about today is what they in the fashion industry call the Bridgerton effect. I'll be putting up some pictures as we speak. If you are not familiar, which I'm sure most of you are, except probably my mom. My mom watches this podcast, and I'm sure she doesn't know what Bridgerton is. Bridgerton is a show on Netflix that has the aesthetic of like Jane Austen. I'm sorry. I apologize for all of my dings. I don't even know how to turn off the dings on this. See, that's the problem. Where you're watching my podcast and you go, oh, did I get a text? No, those are Devin's dings going off. I'm sorry. Out of some of these, I don't know how to turn off. Do I go to like settings? I don't even know. Sounds. There's not even like a, isn't there like a clicker? Oh, I guess I could just turn it down. All right, we'll see if that worked. Bridgerton has the aesthetic of Jane Austen. However, they mix races of people in a super interesting way, in a way that I think is really cool. You don't often see a period piece, and you do more recently, such as Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, and which is really awesome. I mean, just amazing. Everything Kenneth Branagh does is amazing. I'm trying to think. Oh, or like the live action Beauty and the Beast, where it's a period piece, but you have a mixture of races that would not have happened during that period. What? I thought I turned it down. Okay, I don't know. So Bridgerton has that going for it, which is really cool and artistically interesting. The downside to Bridgerton is that it is porn. It's like if you took a Jane Austen story and you added in a bunch of racial diversity and porn, that would be Bridgerton. So I don't recommend it because of the porn, but I get why people like the fashion. So I watched the first season. It is kind of like a train wreck in the sense that you can't look away. Like you're desperate to find out how the season ends. But then I was able to be like, I can't watch any more of this because it is garbage. However, it is the most watched show ever on Netflix. Like 80 million people or some crazy number have watched the show, which is kind of sad because it's garbage mostly. It's just garbage. I should say that if you take a Jane Austen novel and remove any like moral goodness, of course the porn, that kind of goes without saying. But anyway, the Bridgerton effect is something that happened in fashion, and it has incorporated things like puffy sleeves and ruffles and pearls, floral patterns, headbands, full skirts, and just bigness into fashion. So on one hand, we have this post-2020 comfort thing going on. On the same hand, we have this Bridgerton effect, which is very puffy and lacy, and we're trying to incorporate this into our regular wardrobe, which, for example, my sagebrush top, which is a pattern by, I can't remember who, Friday Pattern Company, I think. And then I did in this kind of awesome floral pattern, I think. This kind of encapsulates a wearable version of the Bridgerton effect. And maybe also these earrings from Grayson Wood, the floral pattern and the pearlescent finish. I don't know if those things would count as part of that effect. But I've been thinking about this effect because I have used this in some of my designs, such as the Audrey sweater. The Audrey sweater is a part of the Hepburn collection, so it's very simple and basic, but it does have that puff sleeve as a part of it, just because I thought it added femininity and interest and something different that you don't already have in your wardrobe. Now, this new sweater that I'm working on, this batwing sweater, I keep holding it up as if there's, you know, like anything to see. But this has an interesting sleeve too. And I don't think I would consider the batwing to be part of the Bridgerton effect, although maybe it is. It's kind of flowy. And like the mohair is kind of a flowy thing. But I also wanted to say, and I'll just put pictures up while I'm talking, that if you go to the Love Crafts website and you type in Bridgerton knitting, you can find a bunch of different patterns that are recommended. If you go on, so here are a few of those. They're not specific to Bridgerton, but the editors over at Love Crafts felt that they embodied that style. This is kind of an untapped market so far in design. When I looked on Ravelry, I found a sweater called the Bridgerton sweater, which has kind of like curly cues and, you know, kind of a floral pattern to it, but it's not stylistically like anything Bridgerton like. This is for that fan of the show that doesn't really want to embrace the actual style of it very much. There are a bunch of amigurumi kind of little dolls on Ravelry, but really mostly this is an untapped market. So if you are a fan of the show, if you don't mind the porn, you have to look past it, I suppose, if that's not your thing. Then, you know, I don't know. You would have to look through more Jane Austen style of knits because there are a lot of those out there. Jane Austen's been around longer. So anyway, I think that that's a really interesting moment in fashion. It's a throwback to this old-timey kind of Victorian style that I do think a lot of us like. One thing I have in my collection at Knitty McPurly is the Josephine necklace, which is very Victorian inspired, and it can hold lots and lots of stitch markers. It is a locket that holds lots of stitch markers. I have very few of them in stock. They tend to sell out, especially around holidays. It's a very gift knit, a gift for a special knitter kind of a necklace. But it's styled after Victorian lockets that people used to wear during that period because the streets would smell bad, and it was common for women to carry around a cloth that had some sort of perfume on it that they would pull out to smell while they were on these kind of nastier smelling streets. Today, because the world smells better, we keep our stitch markers in them, and this one holds a lot. So if you are in the market for a stitch marker necklace, or if you have a special knitter that you would like to get a gift for, those are available in my shop. And there's other ones there too, so feel free to go take a look at that. Okay, this week's word of the week is felt. And the reason that I brought this up is because I came across this book called Wool Buddies, 20 Irresistibly Simple, I take issue with that, needle felting projects. And these are adorable. I bought this book a couple years ago, and I bought it because it was amazingly adorable, and here's the back. And I thought, these are so cute, and this is a wool related project. Like, I could totally felt wool. But it turns out that this is a really difficult thing to do if you've ever tried to do it. So this lady, this book is written by Jackie Huang, and this lady is a master. Now, there are detailed directions in here, and this is true. You really do have to be careful. I have stabbed myself more than one time. Sorry, I want to be able to make sure I've got the picture in there. With a needle felting needle. But she gives good directions on how to do it. And making the basic shapes. So it's not as easy as it looks, okay? That's the basic gist here. Here are some quote unquote simple wool buddies. Like if you're looking for a new wool related hobby that makes absolutely adorable tiny things. Oh my gosh, Zeke the rabbit. Look at his big eyes. He is so cute. Like he's so cute. And that's why I bought the book, but they're really hard to do. If you are good at things, and there's step-by-step instructions, if you are good at things and you want to learn new things, I think this owl was the first thing that I made. Her name is Amelia the Owl. Then I recommend this book for you. Really, it's just adorable. Like step-by-step instructions. So, you know, but it's just so cute. Look at this alligator. Oh, adorable. Here is a much bigger, super cute bear and family. Like it takes just the amount of time that it took for Jackie, who was a former Lucasfilm animator. So not like a hobbyist artist, okay? She's like a professional. Oh, him. Jackie, I assumed. Jackie is a man. I see. Wow, Jackie is a man. That's super interesting. He said he wanted to find unique toys for his newborn daughter. After searching for months and coming up empty-handed, he decided to create Wool Buddy, a collection of premium handcrafted stuffed animals that reflected the imaginative world he wanted to share with his daughter. Wool Buddy boasts 300 characters. Huh. Wow, some people are just amazingly talented. And Jackie Huang, who is a man, now we know, has come up with these. Anyway, book is adorable, but I don't know that I recommend the book for like normal people. I mean, if you're superhuman and want to learn a new skill, go for it. So anyway, let's talk about the word felt, because these are felted wool. So felt is an unwoven fabric matted together by rolling or beating while wet. This is Old English from the West Germanic felats, meaning something beaten, compressed, or compressed wool. Old Saxon, Middle Dutch, Old High German, Proto-German. So this goes back based on the word to beat, to thrust, strike, drive with a sense of beating. So the word originated with the way that it was made. They made the felt by beating it while wet, which you can do with like natural wool. In this book, they just use needles. So they're making something tiny. Interestingly enough, the origin of the word felt gave us the word filter. And the reason for that is because in the early 15th century, when we started using the word filter, it was a piece of felt through which liquid is strained. And interestingly enough, this morning I woke up and I had no K-cups. So I used my French press. It's hard to see because I just moved it, but I've got all sorts of sludge in the bottom of my coffee. Which, like, if you go and get like Turkish coffee or Ethiopian coffee, there's always sludge in there. And you're not supposed to drink it, you just leave it in the bottom. I guess it adds more or whatever. But I just was dealing with filters this morning, so that's interesting because I have my French press, but I was also trying to use a coffee filter with it to get the sludge out. Anyway, who cares? Whatever. So I went looking for some knitting fantasies. It's a segment I'm not going to have today, other than the things that I've already shown in relation to the Bridgerton effect and basically the things that I'm working on. Like these things that started out in my brain, I'm just so happy with them. Like that's all I want to work on right now. And the fingering weight version of the, of the Everywhere sweater. Like that's all I want to work on right now. So here's what happened. I have a story from Kelly, who has sent a wonderful story that I think a lot of us can relate to, about babies and blankets and finding time to knit that a lot of us can relate to. She sent a lot of pictures, so I'll put up pictures too as I'm telling the story. She says, "Hi, Devin. I wanted to share a story about a baby blanket that I knit over the course of 6 years and had to wait its turn while I wrapped 2 other babies in hand-knit blankets until it finally got used. So here's what happened. I learned how to knit from a dear family friend in the summer of 2007 before my junior year of college. I stuck with making scarves and some ill-fitting hats because I had no clue about gauge or swatching, next to no budget for yarn and only a couple pairs of size 7 or 8 needles. But I really enjoyed it, so I kept at it. Jump forward to January 2010. Now I'm a college graduate, a military wife, and a mom-to-be, all titles earned within 6 months, which was a bit overwhelming but wonderful at the same time. I'd improved my knitting skills a bit and expanded my needle collection by a few more pairs. While my husband trained for the Air Force, we lived out of suitcases for about 4 months of our first year of marriage. And I tried to find a way to pass the time while he spent his days in class. I remember those early months of having just 1 or 2 kids before you know other moms, and it is a lonely time. It is difficult. So if any of you out there are new moms and you're learning how to knit and that's why you're here watching this podcast, we are all right there with you, or we were at one time. Kelly says, after knitting a few sets of baby booties and scratch mitts, I had a few people suggest, scratchy mitts? I don't know what scratch mitts are. I had a few people suggest that I sell some knitted items on Etsy. People always suggest that. I don't know why they do that. This felt like a great way to occupy my free time. Kelly said yes. So I went to the craft store and grabbed some skeins of yarn, planning to knit baby items like booties, hats, and some blankets. I had knit only 1 blanket before, but figured baby blankets would be easy since they were smaller. Boy, was I wrong. Along with the yarn, I picked up a book of vintage baby patterns, mostly because I loved the history shared in it. Kelly is a kindred spirit. Because I knew the patterns were mostly because I loved the history shared in it, not because I knew, I don't understand, but the patterns were above her skill level. Okay, so that's rough. While looking through the book, I found a blanket pattern that looked doable for a beginner knitter. I did some crazy math based on the suggested yarn and the yarn I had on hand to figure out what needles I should use. I love math and thought I had the knitting math thing figured out. Spoiler alert, I did not. But knowing no better, I forged ahead with this blanket that I intended to sell on Etsy. I plugged away at it despite breaking 2 sets of plastic needles while making it. I realized much later that this was because I was knitting at a much tighter gauge than I should have. But it would be years until this revelation. I get it. I totally get it. You need help, like when you're new and you don't have anybody around you, it's really hard to figure this stuff out. On a visit home, I showed my progress about 8 inches to the friend who had taught me how to knit. She looked at it and asked me how I did my purling. I demonstrated, and she pointed out that I was doing a weird twisting that was not part of the normal purl stitch, and then taught me how to do it properly. I was so thankful for this teaching moment and started purling the correct way on the blanket. I was maybe 5 or 6 rows into doing it the new way when I realized that it made the pattern look very different than the work before with the weird twisted purl. So I ripped out the entire thing. Back to square one. I was not daunted, but slightly less enthused about the project. Yeah, because you're doing it for the second time. It's like second sock syndrome. I totally get it, Kelly. I got back to the amount that I had done before I frogged, and then I set it aside. I worked on other things like a baby blanket for our firstborn and an ill-fated sweater that fit no one and was eventually frogged. We welcomed a baby girl in the spring, and our life changed for the better with her arrival, but my knitting time was nearly non-existent, of course. I decided an Etsy shop was not going to be practical during this season of life, so the blanket sat in a project bag, pretty much forgotten. Fast forward to the fall of 2011, and we were expecting baby number 2. I went through my project bag and found not 1, but 2 baby blanket works in progress. I decided to pick up the striped blanket since it felt like it was more gender neutral. The poor daisy stitch blanket continued to sit. In March of 2012, we welcomed our son, and he was wrapped in the second baby blanket I had completed, which was not the baby blanket cast on from more than 2 years earlier. Now we come to the summer of 2015, and our family of 4 has moved a couple more times. I've knit my first baby sweater that actually fits a baby, and we found out we're expecting again. As I was poring over a new knitting book for a blanket pattern for this baby, my husband, who is very supportive of my knitting hobby, sweetly asked, "Do you think you can finish that rainbow yarn blanket for this baby?" I really wasn't looking forward to picking up this needle-breaking project, but I would do anything for him, so I agreed, while also knitting another new blanket for this little one, because at this point in my knitting journey, I knew finishing 1.5 blankets in about 9 months was realistic. With 4 little ones, oh my gosh, Kelly, you are a woman warrior. She says, "The stitch used in the blanket was easily memorized, but it took a lot of effort, so I tried to do a few rows every day or more if time allowed. I took the blanket to the many prenatal appointments I had. This baby was deemed high risk due to the rare blood issue." She had a rare blood issue, so extra monitoring was needed. "I drove with my 2 kids an hour and a half to Oklahoma City every other week for ultrasounds to check on the baby. Often, we would be in the waiting room for an hour or more, so I had plenty of knitting time for the blanket. The original pattern called for a crocheted border, but I did not feel that was achievable, so I opted for a knitted border that was sewn on. It was the final piece I needed, but I had plenty of time to finish since I started that part around Christmas, and the baby wasn't due until the beginning of March. At an appointment in January, I was working on it when I was called back for the ultrasound. After looking at the scans and the numbers and then doing some scanning herself, the doctor said, "Once you're cleaned up, come meet me in the conference room." Oh gosh, no one wants to hear that. I knew something was up because every other time she had just said, "Okay, see you in 2 weeks." So I wiped the ultrasound goo from my belly, gathered my things, and headed into the conference room. There she explained that the baby was struggling with anemia and she wanted me to go to the hospital for a 24-hour observation. Thank God that my mother-in-law had driven up to meet us for this appointment. While I headed to the hospital, she took my other 2 kids to dinner. I misplaced 2 kids in there somewhere. I don't know. That's okay. No worries. And my husband started driving to the city to meet us. It was not the Friday night any of us had planned. Once checked in and hooked up to the monitors, I had nothing but time on my hands. So I knit, and then I knit some more. I finished the border that night and started to sew it on the next day when they decided that it would be best for the baby if I stayed for the weekend. Woo woo! When you have 2 little children, a few nights in the hospital are like glorious. Once the weekend was over, the blanket was complete. There were several different ways we thought that things would play out, but what ended up happening was that our daughter came out after 5 days of hospitalized bed rest for me at only 32 weeks gestational age and weighing 3 pounds, 4 ounces. Now that would be terrifying. She was whisked off to the NICU, and I didn't get to spend any significant time with her until she was about 9 hours old. We couldn't hold her until she was 5 days old, and she was 9 days old when she was wrapped up in the only knitted blanket we had with us. The rainbow one started more than 6 years before. That's pretty good though, 9 days in the NICU, being 8 weeks early, that's not bad. Today, she is a feisty first grader and thriving. We are so thankful for the doctors, nurses, and specialists that helped during her stay at the NICU. I'm also grateful for a hobby that helped me pass the many hours at appointments, on bed rest, and then in between pumping, diaper changes, and the much longed for cuddles while she grew and got healthy in the NICU. She was promoted to a big sister at 2 years old, and her little sister was also wrapped up in the rainbow blanket when she came home, but I'll always consider it Amelia's special blanket. Love, Kelly. Oh, that is awesome. And those pictures are so good. Oh my gosh, Amelia is so cute. And I love the name Amelia. You can tell I have an Amelia needle case in my shop. I used all the names that I have 3 girls, but I still had girl names that I loved and we didn't get to use. So a lot of those have popped up in my shop. Thank you so much for your story, Kelly. If you have a knitting story that you would like to share on the podcast, please send it to me. My very favorite way is when you take a video and send me the video, because then I can see your face and everyone can see your face, and we just love that. You can send me an audio recording. You can type it out and send it to me, and I will read it for you just like Kelly did. But I would love to share your story on the podcast. So email those to me, Devin at Ventry. That's my home address, Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. I would love to hear from you. So thank you so much for joining me. This podcast has been great. Happy Sunday going forward. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you get some cooler weather and you get to sit on the porch and knit like I am planning to do today. So happy knitting. Bye.